We're going to review how to solve when you have an exponent in an equation. So when you see a power of 3, we are going to cancel by taking the cube root on both sides. A root will cancel an exponent. The cube root cancels the x to the third. We are left with x. And the cube root of 64, we are looking for a number that multiplies by itself 3 times to get 64. You could type it in your calculator, but that will give you 4. Number 2, we have a 3 that's being multiplied by the x squared, so we can't take the square root yet. We do have to get rid of the 3 first by dividing. Now that we've isolated the x squared, now we can use the square root on both sides. Now a square root has an even index, so when you have an even index, you do need to make sure you put a plus and a minus in front of the value that you get. If you go back to number 1, if we did plug in a 4 to the third power, you have a positive times a positive times a positive. That will give you a positive 64. If we had tried a negative times a negative times a negative will give you a negative 64, which is not what we wanted. So only one answer when you have an odd index. At the bottom, if we plug in a 6, a positive 6 times itself will stay a positive, and then times 3 will give you positive 108. If we check a negative 6 times a negative 6 will give you a positive 36, and then multiplied by 3 will give you a positive 108. So there are 2 values that worked. So again, that's why you need to use the plus minus when you have an even index. On number 3, the 2 is inside the parentheses, it's inside the exponent, so you can start by taking the cube root to cancel the power of 3. The root is going to cancel the exponent, so the x minus 2 will drop down. On the right, you can leave it as, we know that there's a negative 14, so when you're taking a cube root, you can bring out the negative. I'm going to say that that's the cube root of 14 with a negative outside. You can also change it to a decimal. I'll go over both. The last step we want is to get the x by itself, so we'll cancel the 2 by adding. And since that is a non-radical, I'm going to put the 2 in front. So leaving it in radical form, you would have 2 minus the cube root of 14. You can also type in the cube root of 14 in your calculator. I'm going to do that up here. If you do, you will get 2.41. And if we subtract, we will get negative 0.41. So if you want to, or if you're asked to approximate, you're going to change it to a decimal. If you're asked to leave it in radical form, we would have this first answer that I wrote. Last one, we are looking to solve. Again, the 5 is inside the parentheses, so we can start by canceling a power of 4 with a 4th root. The 4th root of 16, we want a number that multiplies by itself 4 times to get 16, so that would be 2. Again, that 4 is even, so I'm going to put my plus minus in front. And then to isolate the x, we will subtract to cancel the plus 5. We end up getting negative 5 plus or minus 2, which means negative 5 plus 2, or negative 3 is one answer. And negative 5 minus 2, or negative 7, is our second answer.